Hey, it's Hawken with TopDon. Today we're going to do a product introduction video and technical training on the new RLink J2534 or 2534. Now, you may have already watched our introduction video on the RLink Lite. The RLink Lite being designed for the professional, everyday programming shop or individual. The RLink J2534 is really more targeted for the casual programming user, somebody who's not planning to do more than maybe a few cars a year. And of course, there is slightly less functionality available through the J2534 version of the RLink. So let's take a look at the hardware footprint first, just so we can get a little bit better feel for what we're dealing with. Now, the RLink J2534 is essentially just a small dongle. This particular tool uses a USB-C style connection. However, there is a proprietary cable that is being used with this specific hardware. Now, you ask yourself why this might be. If you're not familiar with USB-C cables, they come in two distinct formats. There are exclusively charging cables in USB-C, and then there are also data and charging cables in USB-C format. So TopDon has decided that we will use a proprietary special cable so that it is not possible to accidentally plug in a cable that is only for charging and not for data transmission. If you plug in only a charging cable, it is possible that it could cause issues with the tool itself. So something important to keep in mind as we go through our explanation here. So here's what's in the box. Pretty straightforward and simple. Basically, we get the specialized proprietary cable, which is 6.6 feet or 2 meters, plenty long enough for USB connection to your computer. We get a dongle spacer cable, if you will. So if you're having any issues getting the dongle into the OBD port, you do have the extension cable you can plug into the OBD port to ensure that you get full access and connection to the OBD port. And then basically you get a nice padded case. So pretty simple and straightforward from an accessories standpoint. Now, you're going to remember, if you've already watched the RLink Lite video, pretty much everything we're going to say here in this video is virtually the same, right? What it's going to do for you is essentially the same. This tool is designed for use on modern vehicles and older vehicles, but modern vehicles are going to have far more sophisticated functionality, complicated vehicle networks, proprietary technology when they first launch that you may not be able to gain access to with an aftermarket scan tool right away when it first launches. Sometimes it takes an aftermarket scan tool manufacturer a year, sometimes less, sometimes more, in order to develop the aftermarket software to talk to the vehicle and perform all of the given functions necessary to do servicing and diagnosis. So keep that in mind. There's also a lot of bus networks on modern vehicles, including multiple different CAN bus networks, LIN bus, Ethernet, and a whole lot more. And there's many variations on those buses. This can make diagnosis pretty complicated on some of the newer vehicles, and some of the vehicle manufacturer software can help you in diagnosing these faults. These are features that are frequently not built into an aftermarket scan tool. However, if you have a tool like the RLink J2534, you may be able to use it in conjunction with the OEM software to gain access to those test plans and perform those tests. So, many vehicle manufacturers have also implemented what we would refer to as secure gateway technology. Secure gateway technologies are pretty common now on a lot of number of vehicles. This can include Chrysler, Stellantis, if you're not familiar, which also includes Fiat and a number of other vehicles. Nissan, Renault, Mitsubishi all have gateways on a number of their vehicles as well. And there are other manufacturers that are also exploring or implementing this technology on their vehicles. Now, what's that going to do? That may restrict your ability to perform service functions, diagnosis, pretty much anything other than just retrieving fault codes and looking at live data. Now, aftermarket scan tools eventually get access to this stuff, and typically it'll take them a little bit of time to build the software to perform those unlocking of those gateways and things of that nature. There's also other things that happen on the back end to make that a reality. If you happen to have a vehicle that's really new that has that technology and the aftermarket scan tools can't do it, if you have an RLink J2534 or J2534, you will be able to use that with the OEM software in most cases to be able to unlock the secure gateway and proceed with service functions, diagnostics, things of that nature. Now, there's also many vehicle manufacturers that are starting to build various testing and diagnostic information into their factory scan tool or software. This is very common on German manufacturers like Volkswagen, Audi, or BMW. Basically, what they have is something called a test plan. So the test plan may involve walking you through a diagnosis for a given fault code or a particular bulletin or something of that nature. And the scan tool will provide a fully interactive experience. Should I say the software will provide a fully interactive experience that will walk you through and help hold your hand through the diagnosis and or the service procedure. So you'll find that that is necessary in certain circumstances. There are certain vehicles in each of these vehicle groups. There are some Volkswagen Audi vehicles, for instance, where setting the camshaft timing requires a special tool and also requires access to Otis in order to work with the special tool to perform the proper adjustment for base timing. So again, there are situations where you're going to need a piece of hardware like the RLink J2534 in order to be able to bridge between the vehicle and the OEM software to perform those functions. This can also speed up your diagnosis on a lot of these vehicles. Now we'll move my bubble back to the other corner here. What you'll see here is we have a very long list of protocols that are covered by the tool. Basically, it's pretty wide coverage, almost entirely comprehensive. Obviously, there are always situations where the coverage is not going to be there, but in the vast majority of situations, the RLink J2534 has huge wide coverage, including a large number of vehicle manufacturer specific communication protocols. Now, here is a long list of various vehicle manufacturers' OEM software that the tool has been tested and verified with. There may be other softwares it'll work with. There may be new ones that launch in the future it will work with, and there may be legacy softwares that we no longer have in the US or Canada that may be available in other areas that it will also work with. There are also aftermarket softwares that it may work with, such as Forescan or something of that nature, which is specifically used for Ford in many situations. That is not technically an OEM software, but it may work with the dongle or RLink J2534 as well. So you can see it's pretty comprehensive. There may be other manufacturers that will also support the functionality in this. However, you will see again, based on all the protocols supported and the many different manufacturers listed here, you're going to be covered in the vast majority of circumstances. Now, a couple of details we want to talk about that are, again, applied to the RLink Lite as well as the RLink J2534. There is no OEM software included with the physical tool. It is strictly a tool and a USB cable. You just have to download the drivers. That would be the only other thing that is provided by TOPDON. You will have to purchase a subscription for the OEM software from the vehicle manufacturer in your given jurisdiction. You also need to remember, just like we talked about in the RLink Lite video, many vehicle manufacturer softwares cannot live on the exact same laptop or hard drive partition. So you cannot install Ford and Volkswagen on the same computer or the same hard drive partition. Now, if you don't want to set up a laptop yourself or you don't know how, there are many providers in the world who can build a specialized laptop for this purpose. If you reach out to your local TOPDON distributor, they may be able to connect you with a provider who can provide a laptop like that. Now, each vehicle manufacturer also has different requirements for both the hardware and the software to run their proprietary program. So you want to check this. You want to look at the vehicle manufacturer's site, verify what specs they are telling you the laptop needs to meet, and also verify that you have installed any other ancillary softwares or additional softwares to the Windows operating system that they tell you to do. In many situations, that will involve C++, Java, and sometimes .NET Framework legacy support. TOPDON, just to clarify, can only provide technical support on the RLink Lite physical hardware the RLink J2534 physical hardware, and the drivers themselves. Any questions or concerns with regard to how the OEM software works, how to program modules, how to run diagnosis, or anything of that nature, unfortunately is not going to be handled through our tech support. That would be something you could call a diagnostic hotline. You can call the vehicle manufacturer for assistance with their software. Otherwise, you can check if there is a laptop provider who will build a laptop for you. Some of them also offer support of Windows operating system and the physical laptop hardware. But again, TOPDON support cannot provide assistance on any of those things. It is limited only to the RLink Lite and RLink J2534 hardware and the drivers themselves. Now, when you're installing the drivers and any other softwares, including the OEM software on your laptop and or specific hardware partition, we need to disable the antivirus and firewall before doing so. We also need to disable those when we're running those programs for any diagnosis or programming operation. It is possible those firewalls and antivirus can block transmission of crucial data, which could lead to corrupted modules, bricked modules, things of that nature, connectivity issues, right? So we just need to be aware of that. It's also important that we do not use any laptop that's being used for programming and diagnosis for other general purposes. So we're not doing internet surfing or general automotive shop use with this laptop. This laptop needs to be dedicated specifically for programming and diagnosis with OEM software. We don't want to use a laptop where we turn off antivirus and firewall on general tasks surfing the internet. That leaves a lot of risk open to you, the end user. Now, we already talked about the ancillary and additional softwares you may need to install. If you need to install the driver package for the RLink J2534 or RLink Lite, you simply visit www.topdon.com, find the page for your specific product, and then click on the download section, and you can install the drivers. We will make a separate video showing that as well, just so you can get a feel for how that works. Now you're asking, where do I get the OEM software? This is going to vary depending on your region. Some regions, like USA and Canada, there's a centralized website called OEM1stop.com, which contains links to each vehicle manufacturer's website and allows you to seamlessly and quickly get to the software you need in order to do diagnosis and programming. Now, it is important to remember, some vehicle manufacturers have parallel software, a J2534 compliant software, and a true OEM full software. Some manufacturers do not differentiate, and they are one and the same. Each manufacturer is different, and it's important that you understand which manufacturer you're dealing with and what system, how they do their software. Again, this is something you may want to seek out further training from a vehicle manufacturer or a technical training provider on if you need assistance. If you're in the USA and Canada, and potentially in Australia, L1 Automotive Training does have some training of this nature on their website, so just keep that in mind. If you're in other global regions, it is important to remember that the websites for OEM software acquisition and purchase are going to be highly variable depending on your region. So if you're in Europe, the Volkswagen website may be .de or something of that nature. So the URL may change, so you're going to need to do some research in order to figure out where to get the software. Now, here's some simple steps that we want to keep in mind before we try to fire up and start doing diagnosis or programming with the RLink J2534 or the RLink Lite. We're going to make sure the laptop meets OEM requirements for hardware and software. We're going to verify that the OEM softwares are separate on different partitions or separate laptops. So again, we're not going to install Ford with Volkswagen on the same partition. We're going to install ancillary softwares or additional softwares as specified by the OEM instructions before we install the OEM software. We're going to install our RLink drivers before we install the OEM software. And again, prior to any of these software installations, we're going to turn off the antivirus and firewall. Then we're going to install the OEM software. Then after we've installed everything, we're going to reboot the computer, and we're going to make sure we leave that firewall and antivirus off when we go to do programming and diagnosis. Now we're going to go in, boot the related OEM software and select the RLink J2534 or RLink Lite, depending on which one you're using, and we can proceed with diagnosis and or programming. So now we're going to take you over and show you a walkthrough video on a target vehicle, just so you can see an example of how the tool works and one example of where we would select the device in the device manager for a specific OEM. Again, each OEM will put this in a different spot in their software, but we'll show you at least one example so you can see it live.
All right, so we're over at the car now, and we're going to do the on-car demonstration portion of our RLink J2534 video here. Now, the first thing you do before you're going to do any programming, coding, or diagnosis is you need to make sure you establish steady vehicle voltage. So in order to do that, we're going to use the TOPDON T120A. We'll show you what settings we have it set on. It's always important that you double check the service information from the vehicle manufacturer. Some vehicle manufacturers may specify what voltage they want a programming power supply set to before carrying out programming. So let's go ahead and we'll show you the settings on the tool, and then we'll move over to the screen on the laptop so you can see what we're doing with the RLink J2534. All right, so we've got the T120A here, and we're going to go into work mode. We're going to hit OK. We're going to hit supply mode. You can see it monitors the voltage live. When we do supply mode, it asks us if the battery has more than 3 volts in it currently or less. If it's lower than 3, you want to make sure you select the proper mode. This protects the charger from overload when it initially starts up to try and meet the voltage target. So we're going to say greater than 3 volts. We're at 12.7. We're going to hit OK. We're going to set our voltage. I usually set it about 200 millivolts higher than whatever I want it to be. That way, if it drops a little during the course of programming, it's not a big deal. So we're going to set it to 13.7 because we want to be at about 13.5. Then we're going to set our current limit. I've got it set to 80. You can raise this all the way up to 120 or lower it if you want. On this one, we'll put it up at 100 as that seems pretty good. This is a 2022 Toyota, so it is possible it could draw a fair amount, but unlikely. Then we're going to hit OK, and now we're going to hit Start. And now we're on. Here's our status here. And we are at a target voltage of 13.6. And here's how much current is flowing. So now that we've established steady voltage, we can go ahead and get in the vehicle with the laptop, hook up the RLink J2534, and we will be able to proceed with our programming and diagnosis.
All right, so we're back here, and we're going to do the on-car portion of our demonstration with the RLink J2534. So we have purchased a short-term subscription to the Toyota GTS Plus, which is Global Tech Stream. And basically what we're going to do is show you some of the stuff we can do using the new dongle, RLink J2534, and the factory software. So I'm going to speed through some portions of this, and I'm going to slow down in other portions. So the first thing we're going to do is connect to the vehicle. Now, when we go to connect to the vehicle, we are going to have to select our dongle. So you'll see the user configuration menu here in the dead center. That one has some settings you can configure if you want to relate it to units of display and things of that nature. So I'll show you here. You can see a bunch of different basics. Different values, different data logging, brands that you want to set your preference for, things of that nature. And we also have GTS Plus settings. So in the GTS Plus settings, which is right here on the left, we can select the VIM, which is your dongle. So this is where you select whether you got the TOPDON RLink Lite or the TOPDON RLink J2534 or any other J2534 style device you would happen to own. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on that. And then you can see right here the interface setup. We have a drop-down menu where we can click and choose which specific dongle we are using. And then the vehicle area, so whatever region you're in, you may need to tell the software, hey, I'm in North America, or I'm in Asia, or wherever you may be. And that's going to help it query the VIN database to match up the vehicle you connect to. So you can see here's some various different ones you can select. We have the RLink in there. And we're going to select that. And then we're going to go ahead and exit this menu. So we'll go back here. And now we're going to hit connect to vehicle in the center. So once we do that, you'll see, we'll speed through here to get you to that part. Whoops, went a little too fast there. We'll go back. So once we hit the vehicle connection button, it's going to connect. Take a second or two. It's going to pull the VIN, which we see in the top left here, and it's going to automatically build the vehicle for us. Now, we always want to double check and make sure that the VIN that it pulled actually matches the vehicle. If it's had a used control unit put in it or something like that, it's possible it could pull the wrong VIN if there's a VIN still in the used control unit. Now, here we can see that it's going to pull the year, make, model, and engine. It's going to ask us a couple of filtering questions that it does not automatically populate with the VIN. So the smart key is a FOBIC style key, no physical blade, generally speaking. The non-smart key is typically going to be a bladed key vehicle. So this is a bladed key vehicle, so we're selecting without smart key. And then it's going to ask us one more option. Does this vehicle have radar cruise? Again, weird that it doesn't know this by the VIN, but it still asks you and you do have to tell it. So if it has radar cruise, you select radar cruise. This one does. If it does not have radar cruise, then you select others. And now you're going to proceed. And now it's going to connect to the vehicle. And again, we're speeding through this a little bit just to save you some time. It can take a little bit of time to do the connection. And once it connects to the vehicle here, you'll see in the top right corner, we have battery voltage readout, just like we do on our TOPDON Professional Series tools. So we can see if our battery maintainer is working correctly, which it is. And then we have some other various menus. We get our tire pressure monitoring system values right up at the top of the screen, which is kind of interesting, right? And then we have a number of other different menus. Where we're going to show you today is we're going to go into the health check menu first. So we're going to show you that. So we'll click on the health check menu. And basically what this is going to do is scan all the modules in the vehicle, just like when you do your auto scan with your TOPDON Pro Series tool. So it's going to go through, scan all the stuff. Tells us, if we go back just a tiny bit here, monitor status for the ECM, it says complete. So all of our readiness monitors have completed for the purposes of emissions. That's obviously a good thing to know. And it tells us that right out of the gate. It's going to go through and it's going to check all the different modules for faults and things of that nature. And we're just about done here. Health check just about finished. And it looks like we have one DTC. You can also pull some additional scan data or logged information from the various control units if you want to. So you can hit yes or no. We hit yes, and it's going to kind of re-interrogate those modules for additional data. And then, once we've done the health check, we're going to get lists of fault codes, which we see here. So our main body ECU had a fault for losing communication with the accessory gateway. It looks like it's a history code, as we see with the check mark here. And there's no service bulletin pending for that fault, so no TSB. We do see under the engine control unit that there is a calibration update available. See how it says update here? And yes, we are going to update that calibration. I'm going to move my little bubble down to the other corner here. And so we are going to scroll through and just show you the rest. No other faults. We're going to click on the yes for update. And that's going to bring us to the OEM website. So the OEM website will automatically pull the various TSBs that may involve that calibration update. So once we see that, now we can scroll back here and look. You see the number under calibration update. You can highlight that and copy that with your mouse, Control C on your keyboard, and then you can go into the bulletins and do Control F as in Frank and search that, as I'm going to do right here, and then do Control F, and boom, it finds all instances of those characters. So if we scroll through, we see there's a calibration number, there's a calibration number. Here is one of the TSBs that has this applicable. Now, if we want to use that particular TSB to update the software in that related module, we can click on that, and you'll see me do that in just a moment here. Looks like there's a couple other TSBs that may or may not be applicable. This vehicle does not have crawl control. So again, you do need to do some vetting and verification whether or not the TSB applies. If your vehicle doesn't have crawl control, then you're not going to want to do this particular calibration update because you'd be flashing it with a calibration that may not be applicable. So as we scroll through here, you'll also see there's Canadian versions of the bulletin and US because I'm in the North American market vehicles. So we're going to scroll up and we're going to click on the one that applies specifically to North America. And this is the one that is not related to crawl control. This one is related to block heater issues. I'm in the Northern Hemisphere. I'm in the northern half of the United States, and therefore block heaters are definitely something we use. Now, I don't have this active fault, but I am going to go ahead and update the calibration anyway. So we launch and we click the TSB, and you'll get a pop-up. So you got to make sure your pop-ups are allowed, and you'll get your TSB like this. And then as you scroll through the TSB, you want to find the calibration number list. Once we find the calibration number list here, keep scrolling through. Here's our calibration number lists. So we got to find the current calibration number in the previous column. And we'll do our Control F on the keyboard again to find it. So here's the number. And we see that this is the new number here, 8966304 C2200. So we're going to click on that. You notice how it's a blue text, so it's a hyperlink. So we'll click on the blue text once we find the applicable calibration update. And then what that's going to do is launch the calibration update wizard. So once we get to the calibration update wizard, it's going to allow us to reflash that related module with the latest calibration. So we're going to pause, and I'm going to show you some more with this. So just a moment. Okay, so after we initiate the calibration wizard, it'll bring us to a screen like this, and you can see that this vehicle has the original calibration number listed here, current cal ID, and it's 8966304 C2100. And you can see it lists the new calibration ID that we found in the technical service bulletin. So you want to make sure that these match the bulletin, the before, what it has right now, and the after, what it will have after the calibration update has been carried out. So now, I'm going to move my bubble to the top left here. And now, we're going to speed through and hit next. So it's going to, we need to make sure we have good internet connection during this whole process. Best practice is to use hardline Ethernet. It's going to ask us to turn the ignition off, so I'll move my bubble again so you can see everything. So it's going to tell us to turn the ignition off before we initiate the flash programming. Again, our stable power supply from the T120A needs to be set to 13.7 volts, roughly 200 millivolts higher than the specified information in the Toyota bulletin on flashing, which states 13.5 is ideal. Key is now off. We're going to hit the next button. It makes us wait 10 seconds. We're going to speed through this so it's not real time. It's asking us to make sure we have our maintainer on, which we do. You can see it's checking the voltage at the data link connector, and it's good. Now we're going to hit start. And now it's going to start pulling the file from the database in Toyota's systems, and it's going to start pushing that file into the vehicle's module. So we're going to speed through this because it takes a fair bit of time to execute. You can watch the little progress bar over on the right, proceed. The estimated time and remaining time values are not really all that accurate in my experience, but you want to be patient and you do not want to interrupt this process at any time. So we'll speed through here and you can see we're almost at the end. And boom, 99, 100. And when you finish with Toyotas, they will flash a big screen like this that says finish. And then you click. And now it's going to tell you to turn the ignition back off again. So we turn the ignition off. We'll hit next. It's going to give you a 10-second countdown so the module can shut itself down and reboot. And then it's going to ask you to turn the key back on. And then it's verifying that the calibration writing process was successful. So it's checking. And it's going to ask us to log in again. And now it's checking. Okay. It's going to check the health status of the vehicle to make sure that everything is happy. Gonna hit OK. And boom, there we go. So you can see before the update on the left here, after the update here, and a confirmation that it was successfully updated. So we were able to use the RLink J2534 to update the calibration in this Toyota successfully. Of course, we used our T120A specifically for maintaining that stable voltage throughout the entire event. And we received confirmation from the OEM software that the process was successful. At this point, we might want to go back through and just make a basic code scan of all systems again and make sure there are no codes that have been set throughout the process, as sometimes this can happen normally during a programming sequence. Once we're all done, we'll be able to disconnect the tool from the vehicle, shut the key off, turn the key back on and start the vehicle, and just verify everything is functioning normally. So hopefully you enjoyed our demonstration here of using the RLink J2534 with the Toyota factory software GTS Plus. Again, we just purchased a short-term subscription and used it here with the dongle, the RLink J2534, and it was pretty straightforward to make this update to the software. Toyota is very good about providing technical service bulletins for flash updates to various modules to address specific symptoms or fault codes. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you have questions or comments or feedback, don't hesitate to let us know. We greatly appreciate you taking the time to watch the videos. Again, I'm Hawken as always with TOPDON, and like, subscribe, share, and please, tell your friends about our videos. Hopefully they are beneficial and helpful to you. So thanks again for watching today.